Welcome back everybody. So in today's video we will be going through the process of loading data from Amazon S3 to AWS Redshift using AWS Glue. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so like I mentioned in today's video we will be going through the process of loading data from S3 to Amazon Redshift using AWS Glue. Okay, so I will quickly walk you through my setup for these three resources before we get into our actual demo, and that will be quick, so let's get to it. So the first resource that we'll take a look into is S3. So I'm going to go to S3 right here, and I will show you the bucket that we have our data in, and this one is this bucket right here for CK Data Tech. So this is the bucket where I have my file, and inside this bucket I have this orders subfolder, and inside here we have this file right here, orders.csv. Now you can use any file that you want, so it doesn't have to be orders, it just has to be some file in S3 that you want to load to Redshift. Okay, and it can be many files, it doesn't have to be one file. And I'm going to download this file, and I'll just quickly show you the how this file looks like. So if I double click this, this is on a high level how this file looks like. Okay, so this is the file, and we have the columns right up here and the data, and we have about 35 rows in this file. Okay, so this is a small file, but you can load as many rows as you can. Remember, S3 can store terabytes of data, and Redshift can also process petabytes of data. So you know, if you have a huge file, Redshift will be able to handle it. Okay, so that is a file that we have in S3, and again we will be loading this file to Redshift using AWS Glue. Okay, so we have our S3 ready now, and the second service that we'll take a look into is Redshift, which will be our destination. So I'm going to open Redshift right here, and I'm using Redshift serverless. So I went through the process of creating serverless in some of the previous videos, and I will link the link for those videos in the description, so you can take a look into. And I will recommend you, if you haven't created serverless, you go ahead and create the environment before you start this video, okay, because it's going to be useful for you. And serverless is actually very good. If you have not tried it, I really recommend that you try it, because it's going to save you a lot of cost. Previously I used to use the Proficient cluster, and I haven't seen it here. I don't know if it's still here, but if you still see it and you're still using it, I recommend you switch to serverless, because serverless, Redshift serverless is really good. Remember, with Redshift serverless, you don't have to have a compute cluster up and running all the time. All you have to do is just create your work group here and the namespace, and you will only be charged when you query data in the environment or you store data in the environment. Okay, so you don't have to worry about now, you know, going for a long weekend and coming back and seeing a huge bill in your account. Okay, so that is pretty neat. So that is one of the best things that I've seen, at least with Redshift, in the last year. Okay, so I did the videos for how to create this, and I really recommend that you take a look into those videos if you have not set up your Redshift account. Okay, so I'm going to go into this environment, and so you click into the namespace, and workspace is where you have your query editor, which is right here. And I mean, you get more information also in your work group. So this is like just a quick summary of my environment. And now to query the database, that all you have to do is use the query editor here. You can also use you can also connect your Redshift to SQL client tools, for example dbeaver, and I also made a video on how to do that. So if you want to use dbeaver to query your Redshift, there's a video that I made on the same. But you can also use the browser, and you can just go right here on the menu here and just use the just go here where it says query editor v2, just open that. It's going to open in a new tab right here, and from here you can now start running queries on your data warehouse. So this will be your serverless sandbox right here. Mine, I named it as sandbox, but this will be just your Redshift data warehouse. And inside here we have I have 3 databases right now. So this one comes with the creation. So when you create the serverless data warehouse in the very first time, you get to choose. I believe you get to choose the the database, but I think this dev one it comes by default. And then also you get this sample data, and this one, you know, I think there's some data here that you can use if you choose. So in this video we will be using this dev database, and we will be writing our data to the public schema here, which is this one here. Okay, so we'll be writing our data to the public schema. So this is the database, and then here we have the schema. You can also create another schema if you like, so you can create a schema like orders if you like, or you know, whichever schema. In this case we are going to be using the public one. I also have this one for demo, and this is the one I created when I was you know, right after I created the serverless account, just to make sure that it was running fine. Okay, so we'll be using this one, this dev database, to load our S3 data to. Okay, so we have our Redshift environment now ready to go, and the next thing now that we need to go is to go over to Glue. Okay, so just go over right here, and you can also search the services right here. So I have the Glue right there because I've been using it. I've been using these services. So remember, in AWS environment, all of the services that you've recently used will be showing here, and I think they will disappear after some time, but these are the ones that I've recently used. So I see Glue here because I've been using it. If you don't see it, you can just go up right here in the search and type Glue, and this is the one we're looking for, AWS Glue. The same thing will apply for Redshift and S3. If you don't see it in your homepage, then you can just search it and it's going to show up. Okay, so this is our AWS Glue, and Glue, if you're not familiar, is the ETL tool that is very popular in AWS. Okay, so if you're running your data analytics in AWS environment, then Glue will be one of the tools that you'll be using for your data engineering work. So you can write all your jobs here, transform your data. So it's going to be gluing all your data from all the data analytics services in AWS environment. So I made a video previously where I went through the process of, you know, how you can load data incrementally from S3 to Redshift using Glue. So it's a pretty neat tool. So this is the service, AWS Glue, and from here there are a lot of things that you can do once you're in Glue. The very first thing that we want to do in this case, because we are connecting our data from S3 to Redshift. So one of the things that we need to do, there are two things. You need to connect to Redshift. So if you go to connections, you need to have connections created from Glue to Redshift, so that when you run your job, Glue will be able to load your data from S3 to Redshift. Okay, so remember, Glue will be the intermediary. It will be sitting in between, and in order for your data to reach to Redshift, then you have to make sure that Glue is able to communicate to Redshift. Okay, so this is one of the things that you need, you know, to make sure that it's in place, and we'll come back to this. And then the other one is the crawler. So the crawler will be connecting to your data in the source, and you can also connect it to the target as well. But in this case, we are bringing our data from S3, so we want to crawl the data from our packet in S3, and it's going to create the metadata here, and also create a data catalog right here. And this data catalog will be the one that we'll be using now in our job, so that it can get loaded to Redshift. Okay, so I think we'll start with this, and then we'll come back to connections. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a crawler. I'm just going to hit create crawler right there, and I'm going to call this one S3 crawler, and this is going to crawl our data in the packet that I just showed you previously. And then I just click next, and right here it says data source configuration, and we have not added data right yet, so we are just going to do that. And so you can choose the source here. You have a number of sources, so we are going to choose S3. And for the network connection, I think we can leave that one. I'm not going to do anything here. And so you have an option here, location of S3 data. If it's in a different account, you can choose the second option here. But in this case, the S3 is in the same account that I'm using. So everything will be in the same account. I'm not using cross accounts. And then now we can just go ahead and browse for the folder or packet right here. So I'm just going to choose that packet, and the subfolder where our data will be located is this one right here, orders. I'm going to choose that, and then just click anywhere there, and then the error will disappear. And then right here, subsequent crawl around. So we are going to crawl all the subfolders inside the orders. So if I create additional folder in that orders folder, then we want to crawl all the subfolders. So that's the option that I am going to leave there, and then just go ahead and add this. And from here now, we will just click next. And here it's going to ask you for IAM role. So this one is an IAM role that will be having permissions. So this IAM role actually right here is a role that I created previously in one of the videos that I made when I was creating my connections from Glue to Redshift. Okay, so this AWS service role that I'm using here has permissions to connect to Glue. It has permissions to connect to S3, Redshift, Secret Manager, KMS, and I really recommend that you take a look into that video because it will give you insights on a lot of things, and the major one will be the connections one, and we'll come back to this. But really, this role here is the one that I already pre-created it, and I'm just going to show you that role. If I go back here to IAM, I'm just quickly to show you how that role looks like, because that role is very important, especially when it comes to your connection to Redshift. S3 works fine. I haven't seen issues, but Redshift is a problem. Okay, so this is the role right here, and I have these are the permissions. So I have this one having full access to Redshift, full access to S3. It has also AWS Glue console full access. It has AWS Glue service role. It has AWS key management service power user and secret manager read write. Okay, so all of these roles right here, I recommend that you put them if you have the permissions to. I would say if you're using your account, your AWS account, then you should be able to put these roles. This is going to make your life much easier when you're connecting to Redshift. Okay, so these are the permissions here, and so I'm just going to select this one here, and then we will proceed. Remember, if you didn't have the role here, you can just go ahead and create it and just put the permissions that I was showing you. Okay, now we proceed, and I'm just going to click here next here, and you can choose a database here. So the database here that I have created is this one for orders DB. And remember, the databases, if you want to know, you can just go here to databases and just create a database. So just add a database and put the name. It's pretty straightforward. So you need that when you're creating your crawler. Okay, and then where else? Okay, so did I lose that? Oh, okay, right here. Okay, so yeah, so you have chosen your database, and now I'm not going to choose a table prefix, but you can put it if you like. And then for the crawler schedule, you can put here the frequency. You have a number of options. You can even use cron expression, but you can choose if you're running this, if you're going to be running this, hourly, daily, monthly. It depends, but in this case I'm just going to leave it on demand, and I'm just going to click next. And this is the summary for your crawler, and all we have to do is just go ahead and create a crawler. And you can see now that our crawler has been created. Okay, and you can go back to crawlers here, and now what you need to do is to actually run this crawler. And what this crawler is going to do is it's going to create a table, and I don't know if we have a table here. If it's there, okay, we don't have it. So what this crawler is going to do is it's going to crawl your data in S3, and it's going to create a table right here inside tables. Okay, and this is going to be useful because we'll be using this in our ETL job. Okay, so let's go ahead now and run this. So we'll run this crawler. So, and this crawler will just go ahead and connect to your S3. If there are any issues, you'll see there. But it's going to start your crawler. It's going to crawl your data in S3 and create a table, and also give it the metadata. So let's let it run, and we'll come back once it is ready. Okay, so if you're monitoring from here, you will see if the state starts showing that it's stopping, this means that your crawler has successfully run, and now it's shutting itself down. So from here, if you want to now see if your table has been created, then you can just go here to tables. I'm just going to open here, and you will see now that your table is ready. Okay, so you will see that the table has been crawled, and it's pointing to the location in that you specified. And you can see now it's a CSV file, and you can see the table data here. So this one is going to take you to Athena, So if you want to preview this data and inspect the data before you go ahead and run it, and you can do that. I'm not going to do that, but that's just an option for you. You just need to connect to Athena and run the queries from there. Okay, so we have our table now created here, and this is the one that we'll be using in our ETL. Okay, so this is good. We have the crawler good, and now the next thing that you need to do is go to right here to connections. So go to connections, and so the connection that we want to create here, you will be creating connections to your databases, data warehouses, where your data will be either going or coming from. Okay, so in this case, I have created right here. You can see that there is a connection here for Redshift, and this is the video that I previously made, and I really recommend that you watch that video. I went into it. It actually takes a long time to go through it, so I didn't want to put in this video because it will make this video pretty long. So I made that video specifically on how to connect Glue to Redshift, and I'll put it again in the description. So what you want to do is just go ahead here and hit create connections, and you want to choose the Redshift connection, and keep clicking next. You will put you'll choose your Redshift right here. You'll put the database name, and you can choose whether to use the username and password, or go with the secret manager if you stored your information there. And right here you will choose the service role, which is the same one that we were using in our crawler. Okay, and it's the same one that I was showing you earlier with the permissions and all. And then just click next, and you'll go ahead and create it. Now there is a lot of issues that I've seen people complain about, and it's a major thing when it comes to creating connections from Glue to Redshift. And a lot of people actually have given up at this point because you spent like almost 4 hours, 5 hours, and actually I have to admit it took me several hours, like probably 4 hours or more, and it was very frustrating. And I spent quite amount of time to figure out how to actually make this connection work. Previously it used to work, but somehow when they introduced this version 2, I think it came with some security changes, and it kind of messed things up. But so right here, I'm not going to go through the process, but I have the connection here to Redshift working, and I'll show you that if I go here to test connection, it's going to show you here that my connection to Redshift is successful. Okay, so what I recommend you, so right here, okay, so I'm successfully connected. So this means that I can now go ahead and write the job and write to Redshift. So at this point, when you get to this point of the video and you go ahead and create your connection and you're running into some errors, please take a look into the video that I made on how to connect Glue to Redshift. It's going to be very important for you, and it's going to save your life. Okay, so very important. Okay, so once you have this ready, then the next thing that you want to do is now we go ahead and create our job. Okay, so we have our connections ready. We have the crawler to S3, the connection to Redshift ready to go. Now the next thing that we need to do is to create the ETL job, and this ETL job will basically be doing some transformations or just picking the data from S3 and pushing it over to Redshift. And in this case, we are not going to do any transformation on the file. We're just going to pick it from S3 and have Glue push it over to Redshift. Okay, we pick it from S3. We have Glue be the intermediary guy and ask him to deliver this file to Redshift. So there are two ways that you can do this in Glue. So you can create a visual ETL, which is a graphical format on this, or you can do the notebooks. Okay, so this one you can use PySpark to run your job and do any transformations on it, and eventually write it to Redshift. So I'm going to open this one on a new tab right here, and you can see here we have visual ETL, and you can actually, when you have the visual ETL, you can toggle between the script and the ETL, the visual ETL. So we'll go ahead and hit it right here where it says visual ETL, and we are going to save this job as S3 to Redshift, like so. Okay, and once you do that, then the first thing that we need to do is to add our nodes. So I'm going to add here the node, and this one will be S3, Amazon S3, and we are going to configure this. So we have our source here as S3 location. Actually, we'll change this to data catalog because we have crawled our data and created a table in Glue. Okay, so this is a database that I was showing you, orders DB, and this one is in Glue. And then the table that now was created during when we run our crawler was this one for orders, and this one is pointing to our data in S3, and that's it. Okay, so we will just go ahead then and okay, so this side is good, and I'm just going to choose the role here if you want, and you can start the session. So you can preview this data. So if everything is good, it's going, it's going, you can preview your data and whatnot. And so I think this one, we'll probably see this data once it finishes. It might take a few seconds, and you can see the output schema now, which will be the columns that will be written to Redshift. This is how it will be looking unless you transform them. So if you don't transform them, then these are the columns and the data types. I'm not going to transform this. I'm not going to change anything, but I will show you if you wanted to use that option. Okay. So let's go here now to, okay, so we have our configuration for S3 good to go, and we can now add the node to our target. So this is the option before we go to target. You see that there's another option here for transforms, and you can actually add transformation here. So if you want to join data, if you want to clean, for example, change schema, if you want to prepare the data, if you want to use SQL to do more transformation, detect sensitive data and mask them, if you want, aggregate, field missing files, things like that. So there are a number of transformations here that you can use to transform your data. Again, in this video, we are not going to do this. Maybe in the next. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to do, some transformations on the data, and I'll show you between the script and visual how to do that. What we'll do is go ahead to the target tab right here, and we want to choose our target. So you can see here we have Amazon Redshift. So we'll just select that, and Amazon Redshift will be added here. Now, one thing that you'll note here is you have a lot of places where you can write this to. So you have MySQL here, PostgreSQL, Oracle. I saw SAP HANA right here. Okay, so if you are in HANA, you can write to SAP as well. So I'm touching SAP because I have worked with SAP, and SAP HANA was one of the databases that I was using. It's a very good database. So, for those of you who have worked with SAP, HANA is a powerful database. Okay. So you have chosen your Redshift now, and then we just go ahead and configure it. So I'm going to go right here, and so for the node parents, it's going to be S3, of course, because that was the first one there. And the access to Redshift, so you have two options here. You can use Glue data catalog. So this will be relevant if you created the table in Redshift, and then you came to Glue and created a crawler that connects to that table in Redshift, and then that table was brought to data catalog. So you can use this second option. But in this case, we will just be using the direct connection because our connection to Redshift, of course, was successful, and all you have to do right here is just choose the connection that we created, and that's it. So you can see here that you have your database mentioned here, and now the next step here is also very important. So you need to choose the schema for your database. So I'm going to choose public as a schema for this. Again, remember, this is our database, and I will just show you again in our Redshift. This is a database right here, dev, and the schema that we are using is this one for public. Okay, so inside this public schema, we don't have any table, no fields, nothing. So this schema is currently very empty. Okay, now and go back here to our ETL job right here. Okay, so we have our schema ready now, and then for the table, so there are two things that you can do with this. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, you can create your table already in Redshift, and then when you come here, that table is going to show up. So if you just go right here and just do create table, like create table, just regular DTL for creating a table, and have the same fields as they show up in your file, then when you come right here, after you create the table, when you come here, you can choose that table. Okay, but the trick there is they have to match exactly. So in this case, I'm not going to do that. I will let Glue create this table for us in Redshift, and it's going to do that for you, which is a very neat thing with Glue, because if the table is not there, then you can just go ahead and let it create it for you. Okay, Now the next thing that we need to do here is how should Redshift handle the data for you. Okay, so there are several things that Redshift can do for you for the data that's coming from S3. So you can append this data to the target table. You can also merge this data into the target table, or you can do any of these two. You can truncate it or drop it. Okay, so this first one here, the data, if you're running this, if you're planning to run this job regularly, then every time that you run it, the data will be appended. So if you have like say 10 records in your file in S3 and that file does not change, and you want to append this, so every time that if the job is running, let's say hourly, and that data, either like maybe 10 records, 5 records get added to it, or it doesn't change at all, then every time the job runs, it's going to get appended. It might not be the desired behavior that you want if you don't want it to be appended. So one of the popular ones that people use is this one for match, and this is so because this kind of incremental data. So if there's any change in your file, it's going to update in real time the table in Redshift. So it's going to you have to choose a key that a merge operation is going to be done on the table. So it's going to update and append. So it's going to update existing rows based on a key, or append new rows that are incoming. Okay, and I did a video on this also on one of the last one, where I was going through incremental data load from S3 to Redshift. So I also recommend you to take a look into that video. It was kind of a longer video, but it's very useful if you want to know how you can use this tool. And truncate is pretty straightforward. It's going to truncate all the data, and it's going to load the new data. And then the drop, it's going to drop the entire table and create it from scratch. So in this case, I'm just going to go with the second one here, but because I'm loading this data once, I think any of this could work, I guess. So I use match, and then so here you will see when you use match, it's going to ask you to choose the key, symbol keys, choose the keys and symbol actions. So in this case, all we are doing is just choosing a key that this file will be using for merge operations. Remember, for merge, you have to have a key that is going to be looking into, so that it can perform the merge operation. So I'm just going to choose the order ID in this case, because that is the primary key in the file that I'm using. And what else? So I think that's it. From there, we can go ahead now and create this job. Okay, so we'll do that, and then okay, so that's it. So you can see when merged, update record in the table with data from the source, or delete. So we're going to update the data for this. Okay, so that's it. So we can just go ahead and save this, and you can see now that this one is green and this one is green. And if you come here, you can see that this is your output schema, and this is propagated down. So remember, so you can see this node is selected, and the fields that were in S3 were propagated down to my Amazon. So when this column is created, when this data is created or table is created in Redshift, this will be the column, and then the data types. Okay, I don't know if we can preview the data here, but I believe we should be able to do it up here. Okay, right here. Okay, so yeah, this preview completed running, and you can preview the data from here. So you can see that you have your data here, and this is just pretty cool because you can have a fast, quick look on how your data looks like when it gets landed to Redshift. Okay, so from there, you are pretty much ready to run your job now. So you have completed creating your ETL, and I mentioned to you before we run this job, I mentioned to you that you can actually also toggle to the script. So you're in the visual mode now. If you switch over to the script, you can see that the script is automatically generated for you. And this is pretty long, but yeah, you can copy this and use this if you prefer using the SQL, or sorry, the code version of it instead of the visual ETL. It's going to be the same. Okay, and then now from here, all you have to do is just to then run this job. Just click here, run, and it's going to run this job. You can go to job details, or and then you can see the job details, of course, here. To monitor the runs, just go over to the runs here, and you will see the runs here, and you'll see, you know, the job currently showing as it's running. And from here you can click into it and start monitoring. So if you view the details here, you will see it right here, and you can go scroll down here. You scroll down, you will see the logs are now running, and this is basically going to, you know, show you the logs, and you can see if there's any issue, it's going to just do its thing, and if there's any error, you will see it somewhere here. These are CloudWatch logs that you can see, and you will see the status currently saying here it's running. Now, one other place that you can also use to watch for the logs, you see a CloudWatch logs right here, and you can just go here to all logs, and it's going to bring you to CloudWatch, and you can use you can actually view, or you can start trailing. This is the one that I like. You can start trailing this, and you just scroll down, and it's going to be showing you what's going on. Okay, but I think this one is sufficient enough for us. You can just scroll down on this, and you will see if there's any issue right here. So we will just let this one run. Usually it takes, you know, a minute or two to complete, and once it's done, you'll see the status here. If it fails, it's going to fail here with the error, and you will get more information about the error in the CloudWatch logs. But yeah, so this one is currently running, so we'll just let it go, and we'll come back once it's done. So our job has completed running now, and you can see the run status here saying succeeded. So this means that the job completed without any errors. And now, to confirm whether our file was successfully written to Redshift, we need to switch over to Redshift. So I'm going to go right here to Redshift, and just we need to expand this, and we just need to go to our database inside the public schema and see if there's any table. So it looks like we have one table here, and hopefully that's the one right there. Okay, so we have our orders table now written, and it's available right here. So you can click to this, and you can start inspecting this table. So we have our fields, so you can see the order ID, you know, order underscore ID, customer underscore ID, just the same way that we could see in the visual ETL job. And it's the types for the long, it's coming as pick int, and the strings are coming as character, foreign character. Okay, so now that you have your table here, you can start querying this table. So you can now select this table here, just inspect the data and see if it's coming properly. So you'll see that a select query has been created here for you. All you have to do is just run this query, and you will be able to see a preview of the data. Okay, so as I told you, this table or this file is not huge, so you can see in the right corner here, you have the total rows as 35, which means that because I think by default we have a limit of 100. Okay, so you have the limit of 100, and we only were able to retrieve 35 out of the 100. And our file, again, as I told you earlier, had about 35 rows. Okay, right here. So we have 35 rows. So that means that we have at least successfully loaded all of our data. Now there might be something with, you know, if there's a file that's coming in improperly, you know, if it's coming in as null during the load process, that is something now that you can look into after you load. But at least from here you can see that all of your rows have been successfully loaded to Redshift. Okay, so now that we are able to query our data in Redshift, we can successfully say that we have loaded our S3 data to Redshift. And from here, you can go ahead and use this data to create your reports, or use it for any other further transformations if you have one. Okay, but again, you have successfully loaded your data from S3 to Redshift using Glue. And this is basically what I wanted to show in this video. I just wanted to show you how you can load your data from S3 to Redshift using AWS Glue. Okay, so let me just quickly recap this video. The goal of this video was to show you how to load data from S3 to Redshift using Glue. So we had our data in S3, and I showed you the bucket in S3. So this file right here in S3, And then the next thing that we had to do was create our crawler in Glue. So we created our crawler to point to that file, and we crawled it. And when we did that, it was able to create a table right here called orders. And then of course we had to create our database, and then from there we also had to create our connections from Glue to Redshift. And again, I didn't go through this process in this video because it's a long setup process. So I broke this into two pieces, and I previously made a video where I dedicated it to just creating the connections from Glue to Redshift. So yeah, definitely do take a look at that video if you're having issues. And then once we did that, we just went ahead then and created our job in Glue using the Visual ETL, and this is how that job looked like. So we just created two nodes, one to point to our data in S3, but in this case we were using the data catalog. So Glue was just storing our table temporarily, and that's where we were getting it from. And then we pointed it to Redshift, and we didn't have the table pre-created in Redshift. We had Glue create this table for us during runtime, and when we ran our job, we could see that the table was successfully created in Redshift. Okay guys, so that's the end-to-end process of loading data from S3 to Redshift using Glue. Okay, I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, please give thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel if you have not, so that you can be updated the next time I release similar videos. Alright guys, I will see you then in the next video. Bye bye.